Hey everyone, I'm Melanie from Streamline Legal, where we help law firms get the most out of their practice management software. I'm very passionate about the idea that I don't want anyone to feel stuck within their software, particularly a practice management software that is really designed to help you run your business. And I think that a practice management software should be something that you are able to use to grow your business, to help your business succeed. If you know anyone who is thinking about or looking at switching practice management softwares, please do let them know about this so that they too can make plans or start thinking about how they might make that switch. We're going to talk about transferring data. And I want you to understand that when you take data out of these softwares, it is a ton of information. And I would highly recommend do not do it by yourself. In fact, don't even have somebody on your team that is techie do it either, because they're going to be quickly overwhelmed and you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. So my number one piece of advice is don't do it by yourself. Don't do it in-house. Hire someone to do it. I want you to hire someone who's done it before, and I want you to hire someone who has the resources to do it very quickly for you. Okay, number two, don't use two systems at once, right? We want to create a date by which all of this information is going to be transferred. And so while it may take a little bit of time, we want to make sure that we're not using two systems at once. Once we stop using one system, then we'll start using the other one. But pick a date certain and say, okay, on Friday, we're going to stop using the old software so that you have a definitive break. After this date that we pick, no one's to put any new data or documents or information at all into the old software. If we want to be able to access it just for reference and to get information out of it or reference information, that's totally fine. After this date, everything's in this software. It will make your life so much easier. And please do monitor that this is actually happening within your office. For example, if we pick Friday as our day, please do check after Friday and go in there and look and make sure that people have not been putting in information or data or documents. And the great news is a lot of practice management systems have a way to track that. They have some type of feed or they have something that shows you what's been happening in the software so that you can double check that and make sure that the team isn't doing it inadvertently or automations aren't doing it that we forgot about and need to turn off or change or adjust for. Okay, last tip is I want to please implore you, don't spend a lot of time cleaning up your data. And when I say a lot of time, like really anytime, it's going to take you far more time than it's worth. The real ROI is switching and getting the benefit of that new practice management software, because the reality is you wouldn't be switching if there wasn't an ROI. So let's make sure that we get that ROI, because that's going to be 10 times greater than any amount of time that you could ever spend cleaning up that data. I would love for you to start thinking, though, as you're thinking about how you want your data to look and what you want to have in the future, I do want those ideas to start triggering your brain as to how we're going to collect things going forward. So yes, we do want to fix these things going forward so that you can start doing that in the new software. And before you know it, it'll be 6 months, 12 months down the road, and now you've got some great data to work with. So definitely channel that energy that you're looking forward to trying to clean up that data and have clean data. Don't waste that time, but channel that energy into planning how you're going to use data in the new software so that you can start collecting it and using it in a relatively short period of time. Knowing your people. When we practice law, oftentimes we have people working with us, and it's very important that we know our people, and by that, know how they work and how they react and how they operate so that we can predict how things will go when we bring about change. And so I do want you to take a little bit of time thinking about who's going to really take to this change pretty quickly if we had to predict, who's going to struggle more with it. There's pretty much three types of people. And the first group we're going to talk about are people that really struggle with change. And some of them just flat out cannot change, right? They may do an awesome job at something they know and they will knock it out of the park every time. But if we throw a curveball in there or if we change up something in the situation, then they are absolutely lost and very challenged. that may manifest in people deciding that they'd rather leave the firm or retire than have to deal with the change that's coming that's this big. So you'll need to make a decision as to how you want to deal with that. The second group of people that I find are people that on the opposite side of the spectrum really thrive on change. And in fact, they get bored if they're doing any one thing for too long. These are the people that you really do want to lean on in helping lead the team through this change. However, a vast majority of the people are somewhere in the middle. A vast majority of people find change to be really challenging and may become stressed or apprehensive about it. But with time and knowledge, they adapt just like they originally adapted to your current software. But we want to be able to jumpstart this adaptation and streamline it, so to speak, so that we can get the highest ROI out of our team and out of this new software as soon as possible. So a few tips on making sure that we can make that happen. First of all, as much as you're able, please do involve them in the decision-making process to switch. You will have the final say, of course, as to what software you're switching to or when that's going to happen, but let's give them some input as to what they would like to see in a software or what challenges they currently have in the current software. I also want you to listen to their worries and concerns throughout this process. Make sure that when they complain about something, you do hear it and you're not just writing it off as, oh, she can't handle change. I promise you they are doing things in the current software that you don't even know about. And that's okay. You don't need to know about everything. But when we are adopting a new software, we want to make sure that the things that they're doing in the old software can either be handled or done in the new software, or we've made arrangements to accommodate that. It's not unusual for salespeople to make some pretty large claims about the software. And once we get into it, we may find something that isn't quite what we're looking for or wasn't quite what we expected, in which case we may need to pivot, but only if we're checking in with our team regularly and making those changes and enabling them to make those changes to make their lives easier. And then lastly, I really can't say this enough or spend enough time talking about this part of it, and that is to train your team. Now, there's all kinds of ways we can train our team, and so we want to make sure that this transition is successful for everyone, for ourselves, for our team, for our clients. And so I want to make sure that we are getting those training resources for them. Sometimes the software company has training resources. And remember those people that were thriving on change at the beginning that we talked about? They're the ones that I want you to assign to take time, and firm resources to be able to learn the software or learn parts of it and then teach it to the rest of the team, because they could be, depending on their personality, very effective teachers. And then lastly, you can hire a professional consultant or trainer to teach the team as well. But again, I rarely see this happening, and I think it is such a mistake. I think that the money you put into training your team will come back to you tenfold by them not getting frustrated and losing productivity because they're trying to figure something out or they're trying to get something done. And so we want to make sure when we go into this that our team is as confident as they can be. So please get to know your team even more. Talk to them about change, talk to them about this new software so that both you and them can be that much more productive once you get in. We talked about switching our practice management software in 2 weeks or less. This is very attainable and very possible if, with a couple caveats, if you use a professional to do this work for you, and if you know your people. And so let's talk about the timing of this. So the first thing I want you to take into consideration is your billing frequency. If you are a flat fee firm, this is probably less critical because we're probably billing people when they hire us or when the case is over, but we know how much it's going to be. Now, if you are an hourly firm, this is going to be more critical, of course, because we may have some time entries that are unbilled or not yet billed. And so the easiest thing to do is if we can arrange our date that we decide to switch, if we can arrange that to be sometime at the end of the month or at the beginning of the month so that we finish out the month in the old software, we start the new month in the new software, that's going to be easiest for record keeping purposes. Number two thing I want you to think about is training. We talked about how important training is already and what type of training we're going to do with our team or what the options are. But let's talk about timing wise. When is our team going to be available to train? That's what I want you to think about. Maybe it's the trainer's schedule, maybe it's the team's schedule, maybe we need to break this up into groups. I would recommend as much live training as possible because that gives people an opportunity to ask questions. Recorded trainings can be useful, of course, but they're just not as dynamic, right? So if you have the opportunity for live training, I would recommend that. And now keep in mind, there's no great time to move, right, or to switch softwares, but let's make sure that our team has time to train. If somebody internally is doing the training, by the way, let's make sure they have enough time to learn what they need to learn in order to train the rest of the team. And then lastly, I want you to think about how busy is the office. Now, we're not going to wait for the perfect time because there is no perfect time. So instead, I want you to think about when is a better time than another. For example, you don't want to do it when key personnel are out of the office, right? But there are slower times and times when maybe some other team members are not around. Holidays, especially some minor holidays, those can be some good times to do this because maybe there's less activity in the office, less things going on close to a holiday. So definitely consider that. Again, there's no perfect time, so we're not looking for that, but we are looking for a better time than another. Switching practice management software. What to do when it goes wrong? Because when you switch practice management software, something will go wrong. So first thing is just prepare yourself. Something will go wrong. It reminds me of a wedding, right? We always know something's not going to be perfect. So just get used to that fact now. But guess what? It'll be fixable, right? It won't be perfect, but it will be fixable. And so that's what we want to make sure to remember. Number two, what do we do when something goes wrong? We talk to the professional that helped you. You hired someone, you took our advice earlier, you made sure that you used someone that had this experience, had this knowledge, and was able to move this data for you. So please pick up the phone, write them an email, whatever you need to do to get in touch with them. Oftentimes, they can redo a portion of the migration that didn't work out properly. So do get in touch with them. Or sometimes they also can just correct what came over incorrectly. For example, if the data's in the wrong spot, maybe we can rename the field instead of moving all the data. There are options that we might be able to work with if something comes over incorrectly. Now, at the very worst, then they should have a backup copy of the raw data that was exported from the old software so that it's not lost for good. Just pick up the phone, write them an email, get in touch with the professionals that helped you so that they can make the corrections that you need in order to feel comfortable about this new software and the data that's been placed in there. You can switch practice management software, and it's easier these days than it's ever been before. So it's not something to take lightly. We do, of course, want to make our plans that we talked about in previous videos, but it is something that is very attainable, and you don't have to feel stuck in your practice management software. So call us. We can make this happen for you at Streamline Legal. We can rescue you from whatever software you're feeling trapped in. You don't have to tolerate it any longer. Thanks for joining me for this series, and I will see you guys again soon.